Hello, my name is Michelle Gettens and welcome to my YouTube channel. In my previous video, I spoke about the definition of racism and how it plays out in America today. My goal was to take the blindfold off of white people so that they can actually see what racism is, so that they may be able to recognize it in their own thoughts and actions, acknowledge it, and create change. In this video, I'm going to talk about what it means to be white. I want us to learn how to identify our race and knowing what white privilege and white supremacy means and how it plays out in our country. Analyzing what it means to be white in America was an eye-opener for me. What does it mean? Do we white people ever even think about it? I know I hadn't, because I never had to, until my black friend got mad at me and used the words white privilege and white supremacy in her argument. I had to know why this was coming from her. Why was she talking about white supremacy and white privilege? I'm not part of the KKK. I'm not racist. I was appalled. I have worked my ass off for everything that I have. I have earned it. It wasn't handed to me. These were my thought processes. This, I am sure, is many white people's thought processes when these subjects are brought up. I am seeing it spewed all over social media, given everything that's going on today. When I read the book White Fragility, I realized that I had no idea what white privilege and white supremacy means and what it really looks like and how it plays out in our country today. I was not aware of how prevalent it is, and I didn't realize that just by being born in this country, I am part of this system of privilege and supremacy. However, I don't take personal offense to it. Remember systemic racism, how we defined it in the previous video? It's there. Because it's the system, we automatically buy into it. Many of us don't question it. I know I hadn't, and I am ashamed to admit it, but now I am aware of the fact that I really did not believe this affected me, or that I could do anything about it. This is called apathy, and I believe that many white people live in apathy and feel that the pain people of color experience is not our problem, or that we can't do anything about it. But we will be held up in arms at police brutality and then be quiet again when it's off the media. So what does white mean? If we are able to analyze and critically think about what white means and understand what the implication for people of color is, then we can begin to stop our own quiet, masked racism and really start to change our institutions, families, and future generations. And we can start to understand what it means to not be white. What white means? White means that I always belong. Most of the places I go to, work, school, church, I can feel I fit in because I'm white. I always have the opportunity to apply for college, jobs, and loans, and not worry that my race will stop me from obtaining those opportunities. In most representations in life, I see white. TV, books, textbook examples. Belonging is something that is there. It is implicitly there, and it's hardly ever questioned until I find myself in a situation where I'm one of the only white people. Then I think about the fact that I'm white. I am free from the burden of race, because other white people are the ones usually analyzing me in most situations. I don't even think if my race will be held against me. As I go about my day, racism isn't a problem. As long as I haven't personally done anything to anybody, race is something I don't think about. People of color do not have this freedom and have to think about these things often in their daily lives. However, I am free to go just about anywhere in this country and be seen as normal or belonging, and I will not be questioned why I am there. White is considered normal people, and any other race is described as their race. For example, I am a pharmacist. However, my black counterpart is the black pharmacist. This follows suit in many images we see in the human race. White solidarity, the we versus they that happens in several conversations when talking about other races, and the lack of exposing explicit racism in all white gatherings. White racial innocence. We see that racism may be a problem, but we don't feel it's our problem to solve. This puts the responsibility of addressing racism on people of color. But whether they do it peacefully, Colin Kaepernick, with peaceful protests, like most of the people that are doing today, or violently, the minority of people doing today, the way it's brought up is always wrong. The natural segregation that still occurs today does not affect most white people. We are taught that we lose nothing by being segregated. These ideals, these norms that we live with every day and don't even think about, it's just part of our life, translates to how things play out in society. We don't challenge or question segregation. We see and lack an understanding what we as a society lose by it continuing to play out. We don't understand racism. We don't see our responsibility in racial socialization. We don't see that we come from our white ancestors that instilled systemic racism in our country, and many are still not doing anything about it. We are not caring about what we don't understand. We are not caring about the perspectives of people of color. We are confusing disagreement with not understanding, feeling guilty to the point where we do nothing about the situation, being defensive about being connected to racism, and we are focusing more on intention than action. We'd like to do something about it, but we're really not doing anything about it. With all of that being said, white means privilege. Based on all of it, my race gives me more positive outcomes and opportunities than being a person of color in America. I live in a country where the system is more beneficial to me than a person of color. I don't have to work as hard for the same things as people of color do. I have more access to opportunities to the things I want because I am white. Most white people are ignorant to what many people of color go through on a daily basis. This all feeds into the racism that is systemic in our country. This is something white people are born into just by being born white. By pointing this out, I am not shaming you. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty because you are white. By seeing my whiteness and what I experience by being white, I can open my eyes to what people of color experience and try to understand their perspectives. I can see racism better and I can try to change it. It is my understanding by talking with my black friends that they don't want privilege to be taken away from anyone. They just want the same access and opportunities we have to gaining it and experiencing it. And this brings me to the ever-touchy subject of white supremacy. Aside from the overt white supremacist groups that sadly still exist today, how does white supremacy still play out in our culture? And how do white people still allow it? This all goes back to the systemic racism and the blind racism that occurs on a daily basis. The inequalities that started all of this stem from the notion that white was the superior race, and they used it to justify slavery and segregation and all of the other atrocities that occurred and still occur. As we talked about with systemic racism, this origin of white supremacy introduced to this country is still playing out today in the disparities we see in our culture. How do we still support white supremacy? Silence, inaction, not pointing out racism, not trying to understand, and not thinking that it's our problem. All of this is a lot to wrap your head around. And when your eyes are opened, it's overwhelming and you really see the problem we have in this country. Yes, there are so many more issues to be sorted through, but my approach to all of this is to think about what I have control over. I have control over my education. I have control over my thoughts and my actions. I want to educate people on these concepts. I had to learn myself and realize that the white culture I was brought up in and raised in had me blind. I also want to open the dialogue. Something that a close friend of mine recently said was she wants to sympathize, but she feels damned if she does and damned if she doesn't. I think my biggest fear in doing these videos and addressing this issue and putting it on a platform that is public is to say something that may unintentionally hurt somebody. But I am of the mindset at this point of, please tell me if I hurt you. Please tell me if I've said something that hit you in a wrong way. I will listen. Help me to understand why it hurt you. Let's talk out our thought processes and experiences so we can better understand each other across all of their races, nationalities, income brackets. One thing I have come to learn as I started this dialogue with all the people I know, white and people of color, is that the experiences, thought processes, and resulting opinions are vastly different, even among one race. So with all of this information, I challenge you to start the race dialogue in your home. Read and research these concepts, because I only touched the tip of the iceberg with them. Don't be afraid to start the conversation about race with your friends of color. Ask questions, open your heart, and don't be afraid to take action for positive change. Thank you for listening.